reasons. A lender is a super important state transaction, and they can make or break that transaction. And Kory not only is an expert at what he does, I call him a wizard, and I mean that in a positive way. Kory knows his subject inside and out, and Kory gives good feedback. A lot of people in the real estate business, I feel like, are placating their clients, placating other people in a transaction, and Kory doesn't do that. I actually remember this. Do you remember I came into your office earlier this year, and I had an idea about a loan, and you looked me in the eye and said, "That is a bad idea."
I don't remember that, but that's like me to do that. Yeah.
And so I love the candid style. I do find it helpful, and so do my clients. So, and real quick on the role that a lender plays in a transaction. So, can you give us your take on it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like a lender can choose to play a very big role in a transaction and be very participatory, all the way through, or they can just kind of quote unquote do the loan. And look, doing the loan is it's an important piece, right? Without the money, the transaction doesn't close. For whatever reason, I love my job. I love what I do. And I think what I love most is I love to help people. If I know something and I can use that knowledge to benefit somebody else, that's just so much fun for me. And honestly, I can't do it in many aspects of my life, but this part, I feel like I can add some value. So when it comes to me and how I run my business, I get pretty involved. I ask questions to all parties involved. I challenge people, and constructively, with the idea of making sure that my client, at least the client that I'm working with, is getting the very best and is thinking through everything that they should think through in order to make that decision. There's so many examples, but you'll have people say, well, I should put down 20% because I want to get rid of mortgage insurance. And I'll go, hold on, maybe, you may have read that somewhere, and that very well could be the case in your circumstance, but it also could be a really bad move. And so let's talk about that. I get very involved. Now, beyond just kind of diving in with the client and really helping them make the best decision there, I also try to get involved with the realtors that are involved, particularly the buyer's agent who's working with my client, because I want to make sure that they have all the knowledge that they need to have about the particulars of the client that would apply to the actual transaction. If we can move quickly and that can help them get a better deal on the house, the realtor needs to know that. But at the same time, if there is something that needs to happen first before we can move ahead, that needs to happen, because early on in my career, I would have situations where contracts were delivered to me and said, "Hey, Kory, let's get this loan going," and I would look at it and go, "Hold on, this doesn't work," and there wasn't that communication, and rather than sit around and complain about how, well, someone should have told me that, instead it's like I go get involved in that early on and go, "Hey, just so you know, you need to know these things to try to help." But it would be easy for a lender, and I think a lot of the bigger banks and things will do it this way, to just take orders. Oh, you want to put down 20%? We'll do that. Here's the number, right? And congratulations, you've closed. And they just don't want to go outside of the box so much. There's different ways to do it, but I choose to go outside the box a bit.
I love that, and I love that you lead with education. As you know, I do the same thing in my business, and I think it just does so much for building trust with your clients, and they really believe, because it's the truth, that you're there with their wants and needs as the first thing on your mind.
Yeah.
You made a comment about the big banks, and so one of the things that I've observed is that when we hit a snag in a transaction related to a loan, and invariably things come up, and it's usually nobody's fault.
Right.
The big banks, I think, struggle sometimes to overcome those obstacles and meet the timelines in the contract, and that's where I think your participation really makes a big difference in getting the deal done, particularly when we encounter issues post-contingency removal.
Right.
Late in the transaction, where a buyer may be a little bit out there on their own at that point.
At risk, with some serious money and other things.
Right, at risk of losing the deal, at risk of losing their earnest money potentially by being unable to execute.
Yeah, at risk of disappointing their family. I mean, all of those emotions get involved.
Yes.
for sure. And I think that it's almost like insurance. Insurance is one of those things that you kind of hope that you don't ever have to use. And frankly, I think most people haven't used it. I think many people look at insurance and they say, "Oh, it's an expense. It's a costly thing." But then when that circumstance happens and it's time to ring the bell and get the insurance company involved to make a claim and support you,
Glad you got it.
at that point, that's where you go, I am glad that I've got a good insurance company. And I would say that in many cases, to me, I am insurance. Because if it does get tough, and it can, and it can for, a whole slew of reasons, I feel like that's when I am going to even shine more. Mostly not necessarily because I'm so talented necessarily, but I'm just so interested in helping.
Sure.
That I will go to the end of the earth to help. Whereas, I think it's easy for a big bank to kind of go, well, you win some, you lose some.
Sure.
Sort of
Oh yeah, they clock up.
Yeah.
No, that's the way I sell you, right? And not that you need selling, but when I am talking to a prospective buyer and we talk about where they're at from a loan perspective, I'll say, look, we need somebody that's going to get it done. And when Kory calls me and says, hey, that client is good for their loan, I have no doubt, and I feel comfortable writing an offer. And so I appreciate that. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Yeah, sure.
That wasn't fluff, right?
That was not fluff, and it's all just real deal stuff. And sometimes you don't appreciate those things unless you've been without them,
Yes.
right?